Black CEO, mocked by billionaire's daughter 24 hours later. She crashed their $2.7B deal. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. You don't belong here. The words sliced through the ballroom like broken glass wrapped in silk. Laughter followed, polite, expensive, poisonous. Ava Langford, daughter of one of the richest men in New York, stood near the champagne tower, her red gown gleaming under the chandeliers. One manicured hand clutched a golden clutch, the other pointed at her. Selene Parker, the only black woman in the room, the one not laughing, the one holding a leather case of signed contracts worth $2.7 billion. Ava smirked, her voice pitched just loud enough for the crowd to hear. Oh, come on. Someone tell me this isn't the tech genius we're supposed to be partnering with. She looks more like the planner than the CEO. The laughter grew. Dozens of tuxedos and glittering gowns, all joining in softly, safely the way cowards always do. Selene didn't move, didn't blink. She simply adjusted the strap of her crimson dress, her posture straight as the chandeliers above her. The ballroom smelled of money and cruelty, white roses, champagne, and arrogance. Ava stepped closer, her heels sharp on the marble. Relax, darling, she cooed. You're gorgeous, really. I just didn't expect you to lead something that costs more than this entire building. Selene turned slightly, phone in hand. Her reflection in the glass walls showed a woman carved from patience, not anger. Behind her, a few guests whispered, "That's her? The one behind Solus Tech? She doesn't seem like the type." "What's that supposed to mean?" one man asked. No answer. Just silence and smirks. Ava giggled again. "No offense, sweetheart. You've done so well for whatever you came from." That was the line that froze the room. Selene's eyes lifted, calm, deliberate. "I came from nothing," she said softly, "and still own more of this city than your father knows how to buy." The smile on Ava's face flickered. The laughter died down, replaced by the kind of quiet that tastes like fear. Selene's phone buzzed. She answered, tone cool as glass. "Rachel, confirm the wire." Ursine coded. On the other end, a woman's voice. "Confirmed. Transfer in motion." Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Selene. She lowered the phone, gaze steady. "You wanted to know if I belong here?" She took a step forward, the gold of her earrings catching the light. "I built this room. You're just renting the view." Gasps fluttered like wind through silk. Ava's painted smile collapsed into disbelief. Selene turned, walking through the parting crowd, red gown sweeping like a quiet fire across the marble floor, briefcase in hand. No one stopped her. No one could. Because the woman they tried to laugh out of the room was the only one who truly owned it. The ballroom hadn't recovered from her words. You could hear the silence breathe uneasy, embarrassed, afraid of what it had just witnessed. Every whisper carried the same disbelief. She built this room. Ava Langford stood frozen near the champagne tower, her red lipstick trembling just enough to betray the panic underneath. She glanced at her friends, but no one laughed anymore. The joke had turned to stone in their throats. Selene Parker walked through the aisle of frozen smiles, each step deliberate, echoing softly across the marble. She didn't rush. She didn't need to. Power never does. She stopped near the entrance, phone still in hand. The screen glowed with confirmation codes, account numbers, movement logs, and one single message from Rachel. Transfer complete. Joint venture assets secured under Solus Holdings. Selene smiled faintly. Good. If you crossed? Down Seth. Behind her, Ava found her voice again, thin, shaky, desperate for control. You can't just walk away. This is a Langford event. You think you can threaten my family's company and still... Selene turned around, calm, almost sympathetic. Threaten? No, dear. I simply withdrew. Ava blinked. Withdrew what? Selene's tone dropped into the quiet. The $2.7 billion you were so proud to parade tonight. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Phones came out, screens lighting up like stars notifications pouring in. The numbers didn't lie. Across the room, Ava's father, Richard Langford, silver hair, reputation older than his ethics, was already staring at his phone, face paling with every alert. He looked up at Selene, voice shaking with disbelief. "You froze our accounts?" Selene took a step closer. "I froze my investment. You just happened to be standing in it." The crowd parted. The distance between them was small, but the shift in power was absolute. A waiter passed, tray trembling. The glass tower of champagne wobbled slightly, like the night itself was trying to steady under the weight of justice. Selene tilted her head. "Your daughter thought I was decoration. You treated me like leverage. But I don't build things I can't control." Ava's cheeks flushed with humiliation. "You'll regret this," she snapped. Selene met her eyes, quiet and final. "You already do." Richard took a breath, lowering his voice. "Selene, let's not make this personal." She smiled, cold, elegant, unstoppable. "It became personal the moment your daughter made it public." The cameras clicked now, subtle but relentless. Influencers, investors, even the event's PR team, no one wanted to miss the moment the balance of power flipped on live screens. Selene placed her briefcase on the nearest table, the soft thud commanding attention. "This partnership was built on respect. You lost it before we even signed." She glanced at Ava one last time. "And next time you laugh at a black woman in a room full of power, make sure she doesn't own it." A hush fell again, deep and heavy. Then applause, one person, then another. Genuine, slow, rising. Selene didn't turn back to see it. She simply picked up her case, pushed open the ballroom doors, and stepped into the night. Outside, the city lights glowed against the glass towers she once built. Inside, the laughter had finally stopped. And in the quiet that followed, every person in that ballroom learned the same lesson. Underestimate her once, and you fund her next empire. The night air hit Selene like clarity, cold, clean, unfiltered. The heavy glass doors of the Langford ballroom closed behind her, muffling the echo of stunned voices. For a moment, she stood alone on the marble steps, city lights flickering below like constellations built on debt and denial. Her driver stepped forward, holding the door open to the black Maybach. She raised a hand. Not yet. She needed a moment not to calm down, but to let the silence settle around her. The kind of silence that follows justice when it finally speaks for itself. Her phone buzzed. "Rachel, everything's confirmed," her assistant said. "The board's moving your shares into a private trust. Langford's team is panicking. Their credit lines froze 10 minutes ago." Selene's voice was steady. "Good. That'll buy them time to think." Rachel hesitated. "Do you want to release a statement?" "Never. It ain't over." Selene looked up at the skyscraper skyline, her buildings glowing like quiet witnesses. "No. Let their PR team scramble first. I prefer silence. It echoes longer." A pause. Then Rachel asked softly, "Do you ever get tired of fighting this?" Selene smiled faintly. "Fighting implies they're equals." She ended the call and finally slid into the car. The city rolled past in streaks of gold and silver boardrooms she once begged to enter, now filled with people begging her to stay. Her mind replayed Ava's laughter, the pitch of it, sharp and careless. She remembered the faces behind it, the kind who mistake wealth for wisdom, entitlement for empire. They never understood she wasn't trying to prove she belonged. She was proving they didn't. The car slowed at a red light near the Solis Tech Tower, her tower. 10 stories of glass and light, her initials etched at the top, invisible to everyone who once told her no. Inside her chest, the calm didn't feel like victory. It felt like precision, like every insult she'd ever endured had been measured, stored, and finally returned with interest. Her driver spoke quietly. "Miss Parker, Langford's office just called. They want to arrange a private meeting." She raised an eyebrow. "At this hour?" "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Langford himself, he says it's urgent." Selene leaned back, voice smooth as dark velvet. "Tell him I'll see him tomorrow morning." "At his office?" "No." She smiled, a slow and knowing curve. "At mine." The driver nodded, gripping the wheel tighter. Even he understood what that meant. The empire had shifted. Outside, a billboard flashed with the Langford name, towering over the avenue. But even the lights seemed dimmer tonight. Selene looked out the window, voice barely above a whisper. "They thought I crashed their deal. They haven't realized yet, I just reclaimed what was mine." A single tear of rain hit the window, sliding down like punctuation to her thought. Inside the ballroom, people would still be murmuring her name. Outside in the quiet streets, she was already writing the next chapter. And somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled over the skyline, the sound of an old empire learning what happens when you laugh at the wrong woman. Morning arrived with the quiet arrogance of wealth, the kind that assumes the world will wait. But today, the world wasn't waiting for the Langfords. It was watching them fall. Selene Parker stepped out of her car in front of the Solus Tech headquarters, her building, her name in brushed gold over the glass doors. She wore a dark charcoal suit, minimal jewelry, no apology. Every step echoed like punctuation. Inside, her assistant Rachel was already waiting, tablet in hand. Langford called again, 3 times. Their CFO says they need a private conversation to smooth things out. Celine's tone didn't shift. Smooth what, exactly? Disrespect? Arrogance? Or the $2.7 billion they assumed was theirs? Rachel smiled faintly. All of the above. They entered the executive conference room. Floor-to-ceiling windows, skyline reflections slicing through the glass table. Waiting there was Richard Langford, pale, exhausted, clutching his phone like a lifeline. His daughter Ava stood beside him, visibly smaller than the night before. Selene, Richard began, voice gravelly with fatigue. This isn't how partners operate. She placed her briefcase on the table, calm as ever. I agree. Partners don't humiliate each other in public. Ava shifted uncomfortably. Look, last night was a performance, Selene interrupted. You wanted to prove your place by questioning mine. Richard tried to interject. We can't afford to let emotion derail something this large. Selene turned to him, eyes steady. What derails billion-dollar deals isn't emotion, it's entitlement. Ava crossed her arms, trying to recover some control. You really think you can run this project without us? Selene tilted her head slightly. I don't think. I know. The elder Langford exhaled, leaning back. If you release the funds, we can repair this. We'll issue a joint statement, show unity. Selene's voice was silk wrapped around steel. You want optics. I want accountability. She tapped her phone. The glass wall behind her lit up a digital display showing transaction logs, emails, and a timeline of the partnership. Every false promise, every condescending edit to her proposals, every instance of her name being replaced by our minority partner in the documents. Richard's jaw tightened. Ava's face drained of color. Selene spoke softly, almost kindly. I don't expose people. I expose patterns. The room fell silent. The city skyline gleamed behind her like a crown made of glass. Richard finally broke. What do you want? Selene looked down at her reflection in the table. I want your board to sign over your shares in Solus Holdings. Walk away clean. No lawsuit, no press war. Ava whispered. You're bluffing. Selene met her gaze, calm and absolute. You're trending on every financial feed this morning under nepotism meltdown. You tell me who's bluffing. It actually wanted the Munzer. Rachel slid a folder across the table. Transfer documents. Digital signatures are time-stamped. Richard hesitated, then nodded a slow, defeated motion. He signed. Ava hesitated, but her father's glare silenced her. Selene took the folder back, closed it neatly. Now, she said softly, you can call this meeting over. As they turned to leave, Ava whispered, You ruined us. Selene's eyes didn't move. No. I just reminded you that power borrowed through a last name isn't power at all. They left without another word. Rachel exhaled. That was surgical. Selene smiled faintly, gazing out the window at the glittering city. Justice always is. The cameras were a wall of light, relentless and blinding. Reporters leaned forward, microphones rising like weapons. Questions fired all at once. Miss Parker, is it true you pulled out of the Langford partnership? When you canna buy a places and 17 says of Consin. Was it retaliation for what happened last night? Do you plan to pursue legal action? Selene didn't stop walking. The marble steps beneath her heels clicked with the rhythm of calm authority. 2 security guards flanked her, parting the sea of flashes. At the edge of the crowd, one journalist shouted louder than the rest. Do you have anything to say to Ava Langford? Selene paused. Just for a moment. The air tightened, lenses focusing, anticipation peaking. She turned slightly, her voice even and unhurried. Yes, she said. Thank you. The crowd froze. Murmurs rippled through the reporters like static. Thank you? Someone repeated. Selene nodded once. For reminding me that respect can't be borrowed. It must be built. and I never stopped building. Then she turned again, stepped into her car, and shut the door before another question could pierce the quiet. Inside, the noise melted away. The city's chaos faded into a soft hum, leaving only the faint sound of the engine and her breathing. Her driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Impressive, ma'am." Selene smiled faintly. "Impression fades. Legacy doesn't." Her phone buzzed again, Rachel. "The clip's viral," Rachel said without preamble. 30 million views in 2 hours. Everyone's calling it the thank you speech. Selene chuckled under her breath. "The internet loves irony." "It's more than that," Rachel replied. "People saw what happened last night. They saw the way she mocked you and the way you answered today. You didn't humiliate her back. You elevated yourself higher." Selene looked out the window. "That's not strategy. That's instinct." "Maybe," Rachel said softly. "But it's teaching people how to fight without shouting." For a while, neither spoke. The car rolled past the skyline, glass towers reflecting the morning sun like 1,000 mirrors of power. Selene's thoughts drifted. She remembered her first investor pitch 10 years ago, the room of men who smiled politely, who told her, "You're bright, Miss Parker. You just need someone who looks the part to lead the meetings." She had walked out quietly that day and built an empire around their laughter. Now, as the car passed under a billboard displaying Solus Holdings, built on integrity, she smiled. The world had finally caught up. Rachel's voice came through again. "Langford's board just released a statement. They're calling last night an unfortunate misunderstanding." Selene smirked. "Of course they are. Fear always sounds polite." The car slowed at a red light. A group of young women outside the window recognized her, raising their phones to wave and cheer. One of them held up a handmade sign, "Respect is power." Selene lowered the tinted glass slightly, offered a nod, and smiled. It wasn't performative. It was gratitude, a quiet acknowledgement that the story had become larger than the insult that started it. As the light turned green, the driver asked, "Where to next, Miss Parker?" Selene's gaze lifted toward the horizon. "To the office," she said. "We've got work to do. There's always another room to build." The car glided forward, leaving behind the noise, the flash, and the ruins of someone else's arrogance. In the rearview mirror, the billboard shrank into the distance, but the reflection of the woman who owned it stayed perfectly clear. By afternoon, the world had rewritten her story. Headlines called her the woman who turned an insult into empire. That stunning. Business channels replayed the footage of her leaving the ballroom, dissecting every word, every glance, every breath she didn't waste. But Selene Parker wasn't watching. She was working. The Solis boardroom buzzed with quiet urgency. Dozens of analysts, developers, and partners filled the long glass table. Every face turned toward her as she entered, not just with respect, but with pride. Rachel stood at the front, projection slides already glowing against the wall. "The new partnerships are flooding in," she reported. Global Tech, Marlowe Energy, and even the Soul Fund want in on Solis's next phase. Everyone's pulling away from the Langfords. Selene set her folder down, unhurried. "That's not revenge. That's physics. Energy moves toward gravity." A few smiles flickered across the room. They understood. "Before we accept new deals," she continued, "we set one rule. No investor, no partner, no client who sees diversity as decoration. We're building for the next century, not repeating the last one." Applause followed, not thunderous, but sincere, the kind that carries conviction. Rachel stepped closer. "I have something else," she said quietly, handing Selene a small envelope. "From the Langfords, a letter." Selene took it, turning it over between her fingers. The paper was thick, expensive, embossed with the family crest. She opened it slowly. Inside, only 2 sentences. "We've learned a lesson we should have known long ago. The seat is yours, if you'll have it back." Selene smiled faintly. "The seat?" she murmured. "They still think power comes from furniture." She folded the note neatly and slipped it back into the envelope. "Send them a reply." Rachel raised a brow. "What should it say?" "Tell them I'm building a new table. There's room, but not for their apology." The boardroom chuckled softly. Selene looked around at her team, young, diverse, brilliant. Faces that once would have been background in someone else's story now leading the next one. She walked toward the window, where the skyline stretched wide and endless. "Every room I've ever been underestimated in," she said. "I took notes. And now, we're constructing those rooms our way. No ceilings, no thresholds, no permission." Her words weren't a speech. They were blueprint and battle plan in one breath. Rachel joined her by the glass. Do you ever wonder if they'll change? Selene thought for a moment. Maybe, but I don't wait for change. I design it. The meeting wrapped with quiet applause and purpose. People lingered, shaking her hand, eyes bright with belief. As the last person left, Rachel hesitated at the door. You know the world's watching you now, she said. Selene smiled, gaze still on the skyline. Good. Let them watch. Let them learn how leadership looks when it isn't asking for entry. Outside, the afternoon light bled gold over the city. Cranes rose against the horizon, steel arms shaping new beginnings. Selene stood there, framed by glass and reflection, every inch the architect of her destiny. She whispered to herself, more prayer than declaration. Build quietly, lead loudly. And somewhere deep below, in the heartbeat of the city she'd once been told she didn't belong to, the world was already shifting one room, one woman, one truth at a time. Evening sank over the city like melted gold, washing Solis Tower in light. From Selene's top-floor office, the skyline shimmered glass and steel bending under the sunset's warmth. The day had been long, but power had its own kind of oxygen. It kept her awake. Rachel entered quietly, a tablet tucked under her arm. You've had 30 interview requests, 3 documentary offers, and 1 invitation from the Global Equity Summit to deliver the keynote. Selene didn't look up from her desk. Decline them all. Rachel blinked. All of them? Selene nodded, eyes still on the financial reports. They want the spectacle, not the story. I'll speak when there's something left to teach. Rachel hesitated. There's one more thing. Langford's office called again. They want to schedule a meeting tomorrow. Mr. Langford said it's about restoring goodwill. Selene finally looked up. Goodwill? She repeated slowly, as if tasting the word. That's what rich men call damage control. Rachel half smiled. Should I tell them no? Not yet. Selene closed the report and stood, walking toward the glass wall that looked out over the city. Her reflection merged with the skyline, calm, tall, unyielding. Sometimes letting people apologize teaches them more than refusing to listen. The phone on her desk buzzed softly. Caller ID, Ava Langford. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Do you want me to? Selene lifted a hand. No, I'll take it. She pressed the speaker button. Silence first, then a breath, shaky and fragile. Miss Parker, Ava's voice came through, stripped of arrogance. I'm calling to apologize. Selene leaned against the window, arms crossed. For which part? The pause was long enough to fill the room. Ava finally said, for everything. For what I said. For how I said it. I embarrassed you in public, and I thought. You thought, Selene interrupted gently, that humiliation only sticks to the people who can't afford to fight back. Ava's voice cracked. I didn't see it that way. No, Selene said. You didn't see me at all. Another silence, this one heavier. I deserve that, Ava whispered. Selene didn't respond immediately. She walked toward her desk, fingertips grazing the cool glass surface. Tell me, Ava, why now? Why today? Because everything fell apart, Ava admitted. The investors are gone, the press won't stop calling. My father, he's furious, but not at you, at me. I thought money would always protect us. Selene's tone softened. Money protects the body, not the name. You ruined yours with a sentence. Ava's breath caught on the other end. I know. I've replayed that night 100 times. The way you looked at me? I'd never seen that kind of calm before. You weren't angry. I was measured, Selene said simply. Anger wastes precision. Ava's voice dropped to a whisper. You must hate me. Selene smiled faintly, though Ava couldn't see it. No. Hate is personal, you were systemic. For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the city outside filled the gap. Then Selene asked, What do you want from this call, Ava? I want to make it right, she said quickly. I want to learn. Selene turned away from the window. Good. Then listen. Her tone shifted calm, firm, deliberate. You will issue a statement, not to repair your image, but to acknowledge the truth. You'll mention what happened that night. You'll use my name properly, and you'll tell the world what you learned about power, respect, and assumptions. Then, and only then, will I agree to meet you. Ava hesitated. You'd actually meet me? Yes, Selene said, but not as your opponent. As your lesson. The line went quiet again. Then Ava whispered, I'll do it. I know you will, Selene said, because this time the room isn't laughing with you, it's watching you. She ended the call. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was restorative. Rachel exhaled slowly. That was something. Selene sat back down, her voice measured. Accountability always is. Rachel tilted her head. Do you believe her apology? Selene gave a small, knowing smile. It's not my job to believe her. It's her job to live it. Outside, the sun slipped beneath the skyline, turning the glass towers crimson. The city looked different now, humbled, like it, too, had heard the conversation. Selene tapped her desk once, and the screen woke up. On it glowed a headline already spreading across news feeds. Ava Langford issues public apology to Selene Parker. I was wrong. Rachel read it over her shoulder, whispering, that was fast. Selene's eyes didn't leave the screen. Regret always moves quickly when it's afraid. The lights in the office dimmed automatically, casting her in a soft amber glow. She looked out one last time before leaving at the city she had rebuilt, the skyline she had claimed. Her voice was quiet, almost lost in the hum of electricity. You don't teach power by holding it. You teach it by using it right. Then she picked up her coat, switched off the lights, and stepped into the night, leaving behind a skyline that now carried her reflection in every window, and a world finally learning what respect looks like when it's earned, not demanded. By morning, the world had shifted again. News anchors were quoting Selene's sentences, word for word. Editorials called her the quiet revolution in heels. Hashtags spread faster than breaking news, number power in silence, number soulless standard, number thank you speech. But Selene didn't start her day with the news. She started it with black coffee, sunrise, and spreadsheets. Empires, she believed, should grow in silence. Her office overlooked the river, golden light bouncing off the windows, painting her in the calm she built. Rachel entered without knocking, tablet glowing with notifications. Every outlet wants a follow-up interview, Rachel said, and the Global Women's Forum just named you CEO of the Year. Selene didn't look up. That's nice. What about Ava? Rachel hesitated. She released the statement exactly as you said. It's gone viral. She called you the mentor she didn't deserve. Is fly as facted. Selene finally lifted her gaze, expression unreadable. Then maybe she's beginning to understand. She also asked if you'll still meet her. Rachel added. I will, Selene said, closing her laptop. Some lessons need to be delivered face to face. The Langford estate was a fortress of old wealth marble pillars, oil paintings, silence that smelled of pride. Ava waited in the garden, wearing black, her hair tied back, eyes stripped of arrogance. She stood as Selene approached, hesitated, then said softly, thank you for coming. Selene studied her for a moment, then nodded once. You did what you were told. The statement was clear, honest. But tell me, Ava, did you write it or your PR team? Ava didn't flinch. I wrote it. My team begged to edit it, but I owed you the truth in my own words. Selene smiled faintly. Good. Words are currency. You're learning to spend them wisely. Everway. They sat across from each other, a small table between them, untouched tea cooling in porcelain cups. The morning breeze carried the faint scent of roses in consequence. Ava spoke first. I wanted to say this in person. That night, I thought I was being clever. Charming even. I didn't see that I was being cruel. You didn't deserve that. Selene's voice was calm. You're right. I didn't. But that's not the point. Ava frowned. Then what is? Selene leaned forward slightly. The point is you thought it was harmless because you believed the room would agree with you. You didn't invent the prejudice, you just performed it. Ava's eyes dropped. And they did agree. Until you spoke. No, Selene corrected softly. Until I stopped pretending I needed their permission. The words hung in the air like sunlight breaking through fog. Ava took a slow breath. You've changed everything for me. For a lot of people. The women at our company are quoting you. Even my father. Selene raised an eyebrow. Your father still thinks power can be traded like stocks. He'll learn slower. Ava smiled sadly. He's old money. But I'm trying not to be old thinking. Selene nodded. That's the beginning of something useful. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind that wasn't awkward but reflective. Then Ava asked quietly, do you forgive me? Selene looked at her, not judging, not soft, just direct. I don't hold grudges. I hold lessons. You're one of them. Carry it well. Ava's eyes shimmered. tears she refused to let fall. I will. Selene stood, smoothing her jacket. Then this meeting is done. Ava rose too. Will we ever work together again? Affant. Selene gave her a half smile, the kind that could mean yes or no depending on how hard you'd work to change. That depends on whether you walk differently in the next room you enter. She turned to leave, but Ava called out softly. Miss Parker? Selene paused. Ava's voice steadied. You said silence was power, but when you spoke that night it felt like thunder. How do you know when to use which? Selene smiled, the faintest curve of wisdom. When silence protects dignity, keep it. When words protect truth, use them. Either way, never let emotion choose for you. Then she walked away, heels clicking on stone, sunlight glancing off her cufflinks like sparks of history. Later that afternoon, Rachel entered Selene's office again. How did it go? Selene didn't look up from her desk. She's learning, Rachel smiled. And you? I'm remembering, Selene said quietly. Remembering what? That I used to be her. Rachel tilted her head. You? Selene nodded. Arrogance doesn't always look like cruelty. Sometimes it's just ignorance with better clothes. I had to be corrected too, just not in public. Rachel smiled faintly. That's what makes you dangerous. Selene looked out the window, city glowing beneath her. No, she said. That's what makes me fair. Outside, the skyline burned orange as the day folded into dusk. Her reflection in the glass merged with the horizon, not a symbol of revenge, but of permanence. Somewhere across the city, a girl who once mocked her was rewriting a company memo on inclusion, not for optics, but for change. And somewhere deeper still, a world that once whispered, she doesn't belong here, was finally learning how to say her name right. Selene Parker. The woman who didn't just win the room, she rebuilt what rooms meant.